were filling stadiums one day and gone the next. No farewell tours, no goodbye interviews, just silence. Some vanished into mental institutions. Others walked away from million-dollar careers without a single explanation.
It's not the same. Takes two.
And a few simply erased themselves from existence. These are the 60s rock bands that mysteriously disappeared overnight, and the haunting stories the music industry tried to forget.
Meet you on the rooftop, but at night it's a different world.
In 1966, the Lovin' Spoonful owned the radio. Summer in the City was everywhere, that opening jackhammer rhythm cutting through every speaker in America. 7 consecutive top 10 hits. 7. They were untouchable. John Sebastian had crafted something magical, blending folk, jug band, and rock into a sound that felt like bottled sunshine. Do You Believe in Magic became an anthem for an entire generation discovering love and possibility. But by 1968, it was over. A drug bust involving band members led to accusations of cooperation with authorities. In the counterculture world of the 60s, that was an unforgivable sin. Zal Yanovsky left first, the creative chemistry shattered beyond repair. The rest followed shortly after. Sebastian briefly resurfaced at Woodstock, performing solo in a tie-dye shirt, but the magic of the Lovin' Spoonful had already become a memory. They had everything and lost it all in less than 3 years.
Even though incomplete.
Before San Francisco meant psychedelia, before the Summer of Love changed everything, there was a band that some credit with creating the entire San Francisco sound. The Beau Brummels released Laugh Laugh in 1965, produced by a young Sylvester Stewart who would later become Sly Stone. The song climbed into the top 20. Just a Little followed close behind. They were positioned to be the American answer to the British invasion. 5 young men from the Bay Area who could harmonize like angels.
It seems so funny to me. Laugh, laugh.
Then nothing. By 1966, their singles stopped charting completely. The band pivoted to country and folk, recording 2 critically acclaimed albums that sold almost nothing. The audience that had fallen in love with their jangly rock sound had no interest in their artistic evolution. They broke up in 1968, reunited briefly in the 70s, and have resurfaced occasionally for reunion shows ever since. But their moment in the sun lasted barely 18 months before the world moved on without them.
The birds sing and
If you want to understand what might have been, look no further than Moby Grape. Their 1967 debut album is considered one of the greatest rock records ever made. 5 members, all of them singers and songwriters, capable of playing everything from psychedelia to country to straight-ahead rock. Skip Spence was their lightning bolt. A former Jefferson Airplane drummer who switched to guitar, he wrote Omaha, a song Rolling Stone would later list among the 100 greatest guitar songs of all time. Then disaster struck. During the recording of their second album in 1968, Spence had a complete psychological break. Under the influence of massive amounts of drugs, he tried to break down a bandmate's hotel room door with a fire axe. He was committed to Bellevue Hospital for 6 months and diagnosed with schizophrenia. Moby Grape stumbled on without him, but the spirit was broken. Spence spent the next 30 years cycling through mental institutions and homeless shelters. He recorded one haunting solo album called Or immediately after his release, then largely disappeared from music forever. He died in 1999 at 52 years old. That falsetto wail on Runaway in 1961 was unlike anything anyone had ever heard. Del Shannon, born Charles Westover in Michigan, had created something genuinely new with that song and its otherworldly Musitron keyboard solo. It hit #1 worldwide. Hats off to Larry and Littletown Flirt followed, cementing Shannon as a major star. He even became the first American artist to cover a Beatles song, releasing From Me to You, before the band had broken through in the States. But then the British invasion that he had helped introduce to America swept him aside. By 1965, his chart appearances became sporadic. The decades that followed brought alcoholism, depression, and a career reduced to oldies revival tours. There were brief moments of hope. Tom Petty produced an album for him in the early 80s. By 1990, he He was recording new material with Jeff Lynne and had been chosen to replace Roy Orbison in the Traveling Wilburys. He never made it to those sessions. On February 8, 1990, Shannon took his own life at 55 years old. His final performance had been just 5 days earlier at a Buddy Holly memorial concert. Arthur Lee formed Love in Los Angeles in 1965 and proceeded to become the king of the Sunset Strip. He was the first black hippie, by his own description, leading a multiracial band that influenced everyone from The Doors to Jimi Hendrix. Their 1967 album Forever Changes is now considered one of the greatest records ever made, a gorgeous collision of Baroque pop, psychedelia, and dark lyricism. But at the time, it barely cracked the top 200.
Pick me up when I'm down.
Lee was difficult, brilliant, and increasingly unstable. He fired his entire band after Forever Changes and spent the next decades recording sporadically with various musicians under the Love name. None of it captured the original magic. By the 90s, he was in serious trouble. Arson charges, assault charges, and illegal firearms conviction in 1996 sent him to prison for 6 years under California's 3 strikes law. He emerged in 2001 and finally received the recognition he deserved, touring the world, performing Forever Changes to adoring audiences. But it was too late. He was diagnosed with leukemia and died in 2006 at 61 years old. Decades of his life had simply vanished into legal troubles and personal demons. Before anyone had ever used the word psychedelic to describe rock music, Roky, Erickson, and the 13th Floor Elevators were living it in Austin, Texas. Their 1966 debut was literally titled The Psychedelic Sounds of the 13th Floor Elevators. You're Gonna Miss Me became a regional hit, Erickson's howling vocals and the band's electric jug creating something completely unprecedented. They were openly promoting drug use when that could still get you thrown in prison, which is exactly what happened. In 1969, Erickson was arrested for possession of a single marijuana joint. Facing a 10-year prison sentence in Texas, he pleaded insanity based on a recent schizophrenia diagnosis. The alternative was worse. He spent 3.5 years in a state hospital for the criminally insane, subjected to electroshock therapy and heavy medication. By the time he emerged in 1972, the man who entered was largely gone. Erickson recorded sporadically over the following decades, his lyrics increasingly focused on demons, aliens, and creatures from horror films. He lived in poverty, his mental illness making consistent work impossible. It was not until the 2000s that proper treatment and family intervention helped stabilize his life. He died in 2019 at 71 years old.
Don't turn your back on me, baby.
When Peter Green left John Mayall's Bluesbreakers in 1967, Eric Clapton himself admitted Green was the only guitarist who ever scared him. Green formed Fleetwood Mac as a serious British blues band, naming it after his rhythm section rather than himself. By 1969, they had produced hits like Albatross, Black Magic Woman, and Oh Well. Green was considered one of the greatest guitarists alive. Then something broke inside him. He began taking massive amounts of LSD. He grew a beard, started wearing robes and a crucifix,
Yes, I'm darling.
and became obsessed with giving away all the band's money. During a European tour in 1970, he attended a party in Munich that bandmates later blamed for pushing him over the edge. He quit Fleetwood Mac in May of 1970 with almost no explanation. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia and spent much of the 70s in psychiatric hospitals receiving electroconvulsive therapy. In 1977, he threatened his accountant with a shotgun because the man kept sending him royalty checks he did not want. The band he founded would go on to become one of the biggest in the world with Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham.
Do my homework anymore.
Peter Green returned to performing in the late 90s with the Splinter Group, but he never reclaimed his former brilliance. He died in 2020 at 73 years old.
They gave him time, doors bang.
Every disappearance story eventually leads back to Syd Barrett. He founded Pink Floyd in 1965, named the band wrote almost every song on their classic debut, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and created the whimsical, psychedelic vision that defined their early years. By 1967, he was unraveling, shows where he stood motionless, detuning his guitar, recording sessions where he could not remember songs he had written days earlier. The band brought in David Gilmour initially as support, then as a full replacement. Barrett's last contribution to Pink Floyd was Jug Band Blues on their second album, a song that seems to describe his own mental dissolution. By early 1968, he was out of the band completely. 2 solo albums followed in 1970, recorded with help from Gilmour and Roger Waters.
Put on a gown that touches,
capturing moments of brilliance between increasingly evident psychological deterioration. Then Syd Barrett simply ceased to exist. He moved back to his mother's house in Cambridge and became Roger Barrett, a man who painted, gardened, and wanted nothing to do with his former life. When he showed up unannounced during the recording of Wish You Were Here in 1975, his former bandmates did not recognize him at first. He had gained weight, shaved his head and eyebrows, and seemed to exist in a different reality. Waters broke down in tears. They never saw him again. Barrett lived quietly in Cambridge until his death in 2006 at 60 years old, never once attempting a comeback.
Jack, and then she looked at me and took a ragged breath. Your paws run off and I'm...
In the summer of 1967, a smoky-voiced singer from Mississippi released a song that knocked Sgt. Pepper off the top of the charts. Ode to Billy Joe was a Southern Gothic masterpiece, a story song about secrets and suicide, and things thrown from bridges that listeners are still debating today. Bobbie Gentry had written and produced it herself, one of the first female country artists to control her own material. She was beautiful, mysterious, and wildly talented. She recorded 7 albums, charted 11 singles, won 3 Grammy Awards, and became a Vegas headliner.
Since way back yonder with Joe, later on out of me.
Then, in 1982, she made her last public appearance at an awards show and simply vanished. No announcement, no farewell, no interviews. She has not performed, recorded, or spoken publicly in over 4 decades. Journalists have spent years trying to find her. She reportedly lives in a gated community near Memphis, not far from the Tallahatchie Bridge she made famous. She occasionally contacts old acquaintances, but always cancels any meetings.
It's way back yonder with Joe, later on out of me. Yes, you did.
Nobody knows why she left. Nobody knows if she will ever return. Bobbie Gentry remains perhaps the most complete disappearance in music history. A woman who walked away from everything and never looked back.
where man has been, or tear it down and start.
For every Syd Barrett whose disappearance became legend, there were hundreds of bands who simply stopped existing without anyone noticing. The Mojo Men had one hit in 1967 and were gone by 1968. Zager and Evans hit #1 within the year 2525 in 1969 and never charted again. Strawberry Alarm Clock gave the world incense and peppermints, and then dissolved into the changing times. The 60s moved so fast that bands could rise and fall in a matter of months.
Days we choose, little to win, but nothing to lose.
Record labels dropped acts after a single disappointing single. Radio formats changed overnight. The audience that loved you in January might not remember your name by December. Some of these musicians found peace in ordinary lives. Others struggled with what might have been. A few, like the artists on this list, fought demons that the spotlight only made worse. What made the 60s so magical also made it so brutal. There was room for everyone to shine, but almost no one got to shine for long. They say rock and roll will never die, but sometimes the people who create it simply disappear. Mental illness, bad luck, changing tastes, or a deliberate choice to walk away. The 60s burned so bright that many of its stars could not survive the heat. Their music remains, frozen in vinyl, waiting for the next generation to discover what was lost. Which of these disappeared artists deserves to be remembered? Tell us in the comments. This was Rock Memories, where the past still plays loud.